I am sure the independent MP for Formena is very aware that Parliament is guided by two important guides, the 1992 Constitution and the Standing Orders of Parliament. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, may I, with some respect, refer you to Article 97, Clause 1H of the 1992 Constitution, which provides, and I quote, "A member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament if he was elected a member of Parliament as an independent candidate and joins a political party." That is why, advisedly and wisely, he is not seeking to join a political party, and therefore nobody should just do an easy mathematics of a 137 plus 1. I will cooperate, I will collaborate, never to mean the same as I am joining or I'm crossing over, because it has its own constitutional implications, which probably may even require that a by-election be conducted if necessary, if he was to join a new political party. I am not clothed with the mandate for interpretation of the Constitution. So the question is, by that declaration, has the honorable member for Formena joined the NPP? Don't recall that Nana Adudan got a president and he couldn't even work with him as an independent candidate. The independent MP. It was the General Secretary of the NPP who wrote to the former Speaker to have him humiliated and removed from Parliament, even though they were trying even to hide the records. We ensure that our official reports captures what was said by then Speaker Professor K on this matter, who on 7 March 2020, Professor K sacked the NPP MP for Formena from Parliament. You recall that at the time, indeed, in statement sacking the NPP MP for Formena from Parliament, former Speaker Okwe, among others, quizzed as follows, and I'm quoting from it: "How does an elected independent MP operate both as an elected independent MP and at the same time an NPP MP if he should win the election?" I didn't ask these questions. Professor Okwe asked. I leave you to look for the answers. I repeat it for your purposes. How does an elected independent MP operate both as an elected independent MP and at the same time an NPP MP if he should win the election? So that quagmire, legal puzzle, I don't have the answers, and I don't pretend to want to profess any answers. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I've always said that consistency is important in our political discourse. Is Nana Adudankwa now willing to work with the independent candidate, the independent MP? What is the position of the NPP General Secretary now? So cooperation and collaboration. Maybe you learn to love a woman you have married. And what about the ruling of former Speaker Professor Okwe? I'll therefore call on the NPP to reconcile their conflicting positions on just one person. Today they found him a necessary ally and friend of a golden friend of one. The caucuses in Parliament. Let me remind that there is nothing like majority caucus or minority caucus in the standing orders of Parliament. So those of you who have copies, you can peruse it. Majority caucus, minority caucus was not contemplated in the standing orders or even in the Constitution of 1992. Indeed, official records of Parliament will simply record that NDC has 1376, NPP has 137, and there's one independent. That will continuously be what we will show now. In the course of time, I'll show you one copy of it for our purposes, how official copies will continue to reflect these matters. In recent past, Parliament has resorted to determining the composition of committees by using the numeric strength of what we term as majority side and minority side. Hence, elected MPs from smaller parties as well as independent MPs, were required to choose their side they wanted to add, to associate with, or transact business with, for the purpose of determining which side could have more members on each committee of the House. So if you look at the history, PNC, CPP, and independent MPs, how they were treated in previous parliament will be a useful guide. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now come to the more important issue of composition of committees of parliament. It is provided for in Article 103, Clause 5 of the 1992 Constitution and in Standing Order 154 of the Parliament of Ghana, and it states, and I quote, "The composition of the committee shall, as much as possible, reflect the different shades of opinion in Parliament." So even if we were to share committees, the different shades of opinion will be NDC, NPP, and independent. That is what the Constitution and the Standing Orders provide. Is Parliament limiting different shades of opinion to only numerical strength? We do not think so. It is on this score that the NDC caucus will insist that the composition of committees of this 8th Parliament should reflect in its very current nature. We will insist, because this is the first time we are having 137, 137. Therefore, composition of committees must reflect the character and strength of the political parties and the numbers of their elected MPs. The composition should reflect beyond mere numbers and cover other factors, including even leadership of committees. Because as we have 137, 137, who chairs, who leads, we are equal. And the same, ladies and gentlemen of the press, you must appreciate that Parliament is a unique, distinct, and separate organ of state. We are the legislative organ. The way we do our business is a matter which reflects our strength and sizes. We know that besides the Committee on Selection, which is chaired by the Speaker, the Standing Orders of Parliament provides for 11 standing committees and 16 select committees. Out of the 11 standing committees, the chairmanship of 7 are predetermined by the Standing Orders. The Right Honourable Speaker chairs the Committee on Selection, Order 151, and the Standing Orders Committee, Order 157. The Appointments Committee and the Committee on Privileges are chaired by the First Deputy Speaker. The Second Deputy Speaker chairs the Committee on Members Holding Office of Profit. The Majority Leader chairs both the Business Committee and the House Committee per Order 160 and 168. Per Order 168, the public accounts should be chaired by a member whose side does not control the executive branch of government. So our standing orders has some provision as to who is in the executive and who exercise executive authority. We are mindful of that even as we contest those matters in court. The standing orders does not predetermine the leadership of the remaining 4 standing committees, namely Finance Committee, Committee on Gender and Children, Committee on Government Assurance, and the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. However, it's been our practice, so standing orders, to quote the Honorable Ahmed Ibrahim, we are guided by standing orders, practices, and convention. The Subsidiary Legislation Committee have always been chaired by the political opposition. The leadership of the 16 select committees are not predetermined by the standing orders. So we've been meeting and we'll be discussing with the Speaker and leadership that beyond the formula of 50-50, we think that the committees must be shared. But we would have some understanding. We are not naive that some party is, without prejudice to the Supreme Court determination, exercising executive authority. We are mindful of that. And where we need to seat those ones, we would be willing to do that. But on principle, that committees and its leadership are shared on the basis of our strength. The standing orders does not predetermine the leadership of the remaining 4 standing committees, namely Finance Committee, Committee on Gender and Children, Committee on Government Assurance and Subsidiary Legislation. Similarly, the leadership of the 16 select committees are also not predetermined by the standing orders. The NDC caucus shall therefore insist that, in line with Order 154 of the Standing Orders of Parliament and Article 1035 of the 1992 Constitution, the composition of committees should reflect the nature and character of this eighth Parliament, an equal strength, equal number Parliament of 137, 137, and the chairmanship. The practice of making one side of the House chair all select committees is no longer tenable under the current dispensation and given the current contemporary development of the nature and character of the eighth Parliament. Given the current numbers, there must be strict sharing of the leadership of the select committees by the two sides of the House. We've been discussing with the Speaker and the leadership of the NPP group, led by the Honorable Osechi Mensah-Bonsu. And we think that they should chair 8 and the NDC should chair 8. This would be a true reflection of the different shades of opinion in the current Parliament as envisaged in the 1992 Constitution and under Article 103 and Standing Order 144 of the Standing Orders of the House. But like I said, we are mindful of who exercises executive authority, and we are mindful that we may be playing another role beyond our numbers of 137 in the exercise of oversight. And we are also mindful that some committees hitherto were also chaired by the political opposition. And I'm saying that there may be committees that necessarily must be chaired by the one exercising executive control of power. We are mindful of that, but respect our strengths and share it. And if we have to ballot, even for some of the committees, we should do. But the understanding is, as we got with the Speaker and with the leadership of the NPP in Parliament, is that we will operate tomorrow with the existing or old standing orders, because that is our Bible and that is our guide. But ladies and gentlemen of the press, major reforms are imperative. The 8th Parliament will have to review, reform and revise the existing orders. I must say that leadership in the 7th Parliament and even prior to the 7th Parliament had been in constant discussion and consultation for the adoption of new standing orders. Probably this is the time and this is the fine hour for us to have revised and new standing orders that responds to this unknown challenges that the 8th Parliament bequeaths to all of us as a country. So there's some work already going on. The House has no choice than to work with the current standing orders, albeit with its deficiencies. It didn't contemplate these numbers. We never contemplated a situation where Parliament will be a hang of 137, 137. We are optimistic that, subject to those judicial processes and judicial decisions, we probably will constitute the majority. What then happens to the standing orders? We didn't contemplate that with us leading the majority in Parliament, whilst executive authority is exercised by another political party. So, without prejudice to the court processes, we have commenced work to regain the seats that are being stolen from us. I'll emphasize just to the Chimasaf and Sepshi. That is not to say that we are abandoning the others. So we have begun those processes. Now I know, yes, I know that given that many of you saw what happened in Parliament the day of the election of the Speaker, we know any mandate or authority we exercise, we do in the name of the sovereign and of the Ghanaian people. Let me assure the Ghanaian people that the NDC 137 MPs have no difficulty sitting to the left of the speaker, so long as our numerical strength is respected, and respected in the composition of committees and in the determination of leadership of committees, whilst we continue to pursue legitimate legal and constitutional processes to procure what we deserve as a majority party. Someone will say what is on the left and what is on the right. We have no difficulty at all. But we think that given what we've shared with you, guided by apt constitutional provisions and evidenced by the fact that the Formena MP is not joining the New Patriotic Party and cannot join the New Patriotic Party by the constitutional framework as I referred to in Article 97. Hence he risked and further supported by the ruling of Professor. So if you look at 2014, you normally will see an announcement here: National Democratic Congress 147, New Patriotic Party 123, Independent 3, People's National Convention. For every other record of Parliament, it will reflect NDC 137, NPP 137, Independent 1, nothing more, and none of you can add any to it. And nobody should be purporting or seeking to say that I've added one to mine. Cooperation there can be, collaboration there can be, joining legally and constitutionally impossible. We're happy to take questions from you. I thank you very much for listening.
Yes, let's go this way so that it will be orderly. Yes, I mean, you mention your name and then your media house. Yes. Dylan Gavik has the floor, so can we listen?
You mentioned that there were some committees whose leadership are predetermined by the standing orders of the House, and one of such committees was the Business Committee, which is supposed to be chaired by the majority leader. But in this case, where, as you clearly stated, both parties have 137, how do you go beyond this hurdle of the majority leader must chair that committee? In this case, as you said, there is no majority. So who chairs that committee?
Bruce, thank you. We'll take two more.
Yes.
Ibrahim Al-Hassan. Leader, your colleague on the other side, I'm talking about leader of the NPP caucus, Osechi Mesabus, was on GH1 this morning, our network, and he says the conclave meetings you talk about with the speaker, yourself, and his side, we've arrived at the decision that the NPP should constitute majority. How do you respond to this?
Yes, the next person.
Yes, I'm Bubu Nenogo GBC. Leader, you said that you don't have any difficulty sitting at the left side. Should I take it that tomorrow when sitting resumes, your side is going to sit at the left?
So leader will take the three.
I would answer Bruce of Graphic. Thank you very much. Business Committee, I noted that there can't be an entity or authority or a person exercising executive authority, and to that extent, if there's leader of government business, that leader of government business will chair the Business Committee. On the other of the conclave meeting with the speaker, yes, at that meeting 137, the swing or the balance was for the Formena MP to write, and he has written. I've interpreted his letter to you, and I've made my conditional demands. Respect our 137, but we cannot say that he cannot cooperate or work with them. He will work with them, but we cannot appreciate that he's part of them as a New Patriotic Party. That's why I shared the brochure with you. Unless, of course, tomorrow when you come to the chamber, you tell me that NPP 138 and add the name of Formena MP as part of the NPP 138. If you are able to do that tomorrow, then I would answer your question properly. But if you come in answering that 137 with a pledge to cooperate and to collaborate, we will understand. Then the question of we have no difficulty sitting on the left. We are responsible Ghanaian citizens. The people of Ghana want to see Parliament function and function effectively to serve their purposes and to serve their needs. What happened the last time did not please many. And therefore, in the interest of peace and ensuring that Parliament functions effectively to serve the needs of the Ghanaian people, my side will have no difficulty sitting on the left whilst we make the demands that our strength be respected in the composition of committees and in the determination of leadership of committees. But even more importantly, they appreciating that that Formula 1 is only arithmetic but not legal constitutional. Thank you.
Yes, the hand here.
My name is Abdul. So the deputy leader on the NPP makes emphasis on that 7, standing number 7, with the definition of parties and the party. And he claims that it's not ambiguous. So in that sense, if the independent deputy is going to sit or collaborate with them, then it means that automatically they form the majority. Can we bring this as a party?
Fortunately, the deputy leader is not clothed with mandate and jurisdiction to interpret the standing orders. More importantly, an independent MP is not a party and cannot be parties, but my layman attempt to also do the wrong is done by interpreting it. Layman is independent party and independent parties. You are struggling for words to substitute. An independent is not. He didn't run on the ticket of a political party. Where I read Article 55 of the 1992 Constitution, it's elaborate on political parties and their role. Don't forget, he was even dismissed from that party. Tomorrow morning, we'll be interested in even knowing whether they are tolerating or accepting him back and under what conditions and circumstances. We are not aware. We know an independent. We don't know a party or parties. So go back to Order 7. It uses the word parties. If it was PNC or CPP, so go back even to Article 97. An exception is made for independent candidates. They are not treated like other persons reflecting or coming from other political parties. I'll take the next 2 questions.
Yes. Colonize my name, I work for TV3. One, in the 7th Parliament, we had the majority and then the minority. The situation has changed with respect to the 8th Parliament. How would you, leader, see or request that both the media and then everybody refers to your side and then the other side? I reckon that even within your own selves, you're struggling to mention majority or minority. I stand to be corrected too. When the House sits tomorrow, what business are you going to be discussing?
At a discussion at conclave with the Speaker, we decided that to allow the machinery of government to run, we will look at the composition of the selection committee, and that selection committee will make a determination on our collective proposals for the composition of the appointments committee and the composition of the business committee.